Hi, we will be doing some measuring today. So, yesterday we talked about measuring and that there's so many different categories for measuring and things that can be measured. Today we're going to focus on one of these. We're going to focus on length. Okay? So, that's the one that we'll be focusing on a whole bunch. Length. So, how long is it? There are special tools for measuring. And one of the really cool things is that you don't always need a special tool for measuring, that you can measure with anything that you have around. So today I'm going to measure, and you're going to also do this, you're going to measure different objects around your house. I'm going to start by measuring this pencil. I want to measure how long my pencil is. And I'm going to pick some items. So it's called non-standard units. So it means a standard unit would be like if we used a ruler and inches. Inches are a really common way to measure things, and we'll talk about that in a couple days or tomorrow. But today we're not going to do that. We're going to find objects around our house that we can use for measuring. And I happen to have right here the tens blocks. And I want to use the tens blocks, okay? The reason why I want to use these is because I have a lot of them, number one. So you want to make sure that you have several of whatever you're using. It could be tens blocks. You could use like forks or spoons or knives out of your kitchen drawer. You could use paper clips. Whatever it is that you choose to use, you need to have a lot of, because they have to stretch as long as the thing that you're measuring. You also need to have, they need to be the same length, the same size, okay? Because these will be the unit that we're measuring with, and we want them to be the same size. So it's hard for me to show you in my hand here, but we know that these tens blocks are all the same size. So those are a good thing for me to measure with. I have lots of them, and I know that they are the same size. Okay, so I can use tens blocks. And the other thing that I'm going to use for measuring are these gems, okay? Because these are all about this size. So you might use coins to do some measuring too. That would be a good one. Or you could get a specific size of Lego, as long as you kept using the same size of Lego over and over and over. That would be a good one to measure with. Or some blocks. There's so many things. I mean, you name it, you can measure with it. If you wanted to trace your hand and make many paper copies of your hand, you could line those out and use those for measuring. Okay, so there's lots of ideas. So I'm going to show you how it'll work that will measure with these items. Okay? So here's my pencil, and that's what I want to measure to start out with. Okay, here's my pencil. So I'm going to use the tens blocks. So here's something that's important to do when you're measuring with an item. The first thing is that they need to start in the same place, okay? See how my ends line up right there? Can you see that? The ends line up. I don't want this to be way up here, because then would I be getting an accurate measurement? No. So you have to line your ends up. Okay, line your ends up. You want them to be as close to perfect as you can. So line up your ends, and then you place down one object, okay? And then you're going to put down another one. Now when you place your next object down, when you place your next object there, I placed it, you can notice, right up against my first one. Was there a gap? No, if there's a gap, am I doing accurate measuring? I'm not. So it needs to be right up against the first one. And it also should not overlap, because that won't be accurate either. So they should just butt up against each other just like that, with no overlapping and no gaps. Okay? So there we go. Whoops. It's hard for me to show you this way. But let's see. You can see my pencil comes to about right here. Okay? Maybe if I turn it this way, you can see it better. You see where the pencil comes to on my tens blocks? Okay, so it took up one whole tens block, but did it take up two? No, it's not exact, is it? It's not exact. So it's somewhere in between the 1 and the 2. Does anyone know how we would represent when something's in between? Yeah, we would say half. For this one, we're going to say half. So if it comes anywhere in between, we'll call that a half. So for this one, it was 1 whole block. Okay? 1 whole block, so I'm going to represent that with my 1. And then was it 2 whole blocks? Or was it half of the next one? Yeah, it's just half of the next one. So it's 1 plus a half. So the way I would represent that is with a half. You're going to write half, and let me show you how to do that. Half is a little teeny 1 in this line here, and then a 2 down underneath. Okay? That's how you do half. So 1 and a half. And that's what that looked like. So I would say that this pencil is 1 and a half 10 blocks long. 1 and a half tens blocks. Okay, 1 and a half tens blocks. Now, I can also measure, so I'm going to draw a picture here of a tens block. Okay, so we just know. Because it was 1 and a half tens blocks long. Now we can also measure using other items. Do you think if I use the gems, will it be the same or will it be different? Yeah, it'll be different. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna line up a whole bunch of gems here. Let's see how many gems it takes to measure my pencil. Remember, line up the edges. No gaps. Okay. So you can see here, I have them lined up. And it might not always be exact when you're doing it, so you might have to decide, is it a half or is it just perfect? Okay, you can make that decision. If it's close enough to 1, you can just call it that whole, or you can do a half. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then there's half of that last one. So 8 and a half of 1. So my pencil is 8 and a half of the gems. So I'm going to record that. 8, and then remember how to do half, right? Let's see. The half is a 1, a little line, and a 2. So 8 and a half gems. Now the reason we do the 1 and a half is because it's like if this 2 tells us we'd be dividing the gem into 2 parts, and we're just talking about one of them. 8 and a half gems. So this pencil was 1 and a half tens blocks long, but it was 8 and a half gems long. That's pretty neat. Okay, so what you are going to do is you're going to today practice measuring different items from around your house. Okay, so you're going to pick items to measure, and you're going to use some non-standard measuring tools. So you'll have to decide. You might have something like tens blocks. You might have something like gems or coins. You might use markers. Markers would be something that would be all the same size. You could do something like that. You could, but remember, whatever you choose to use, they have to be the same size. So crayons might not be a really good choice, because I know in my crayon box, some of them are long, but some are shorter. So they might not be a good thing to measure with. Legos, or if you have Magna-Tiles that have a whole bunch of pieces that are the same, those might be a really great thing to use. Okay, I'm going to show you. I want you to make a paper to use to do your work with today. And I know that you're really good at following step-by-step directions, so that this should be pretty easy for you. Okay, let me show you the start of this project. So to start with, you're going to take your paper and draw 2 lines going up and down like that. So you have 1, 2, 3 columns. Then you're going to draw a little line or a line across the top so you have a little space there. Okay? And then this other part you want to divide into 4 sections. So you're going to draw 3 more lines. 1, 2, and 3. And your paper will look something like this. Okay, a little section at the top and then 4 more sections going down the sides. Now, here's what my paper looked like. Like this, okay? A little section at the top and 4 sections going down, okay? So then I want to show you the next part. The next part is once you've decided the 2 different things that you'll be measuring with, you're going to draw a picture of them up here. So I'm going to be measuring with tens blocks, so I drew that up here in the middle column. And I'll be measuring with gems, so I drew that up here over in this column. Now, here's the next step. As you're going through your work, you're going to draw some pictures. Let me get a different color marker. Okay. So I'll just put this right up there for now. Okay, so to get started, I would draw a picture of whatever I'm measuring. So since I was measuring my pencil, right here, I would draw a picture of my pencil. Okay, so that tells me that's what I was measuring. Now I know when I did the tens blocks part of this, it was 1.5 tens blocks long. So I'm going to write 1.5 in the tens blocks section. And then I measured it with the gems, and it was 8.5 gems. So I'm going to write it right here, 8.5. Okay, so here's my pencil. This is what I measured. I measured it with the tens blocks, and I got 1.5. I measured it with the gems, and I got 8.5. So I would like you to do that with 1, 2, 3, 4 objects. Okay, you're going to measure them in using 2 different items that you find around your house. Okay, now if you finish that and you still want to do some more, feel free to turn your paper over and do it again. And this time you might want to choose 2 different items to do measuring with. Okay, remember the rules though. Make sure you have enough of them. Make sure that they're the same size, that you line them up so that they're just touching perfectly, so there's no gaps and no spaces. Okay, so go ahead and you can start some measuring.